Hello, everyone. Um, well, before I start, this is actually my place. Normally, I would do the recording downstairs where I live, but there are people down there today, and I didn't feel like waiting. So, uh, yeah, welcome to episode 15. And I guess for this episode, it should be something called "Don't Forget to Live." I guess, or would it be giving people grace? I don't know yet. I'll probably come up with a title as I go closer to the end. But so the reason why I said don't forget to live is that I picked up myself, I guess, a Stratocaster Mini, with it's a Squire. It was on sale, Black Friday sale, and just because if I were to help the band move to greater heights, then I probably should know everyone's instrument. And I played regular guitar, not electric ones, and so I'm just playing some to get a better understanding of it. And one of the things that I found really cool just now is about doing scales exercises. Now I don't have a strap for this new one yet, so I'm actually it's actually harder to hold because this hand has to both hold the guitar but also hit all the notes. And but then again, it's also a new exercise, so I don't play it very well. Now, from what I remembered from classical guitar, it's more mariachi guitar, I guess. Um, it's when I do a scale, or at least what I was taught was, so you keep it in these four frets, and if the guide didn't lie, this should be a D string, and it should be it is a D because that's E, right? Okay. So it's done. You keep it neatly in the four, right? But as these four are very nice to remember, I come to realize that I don't have knowledge of rest of the board relative to wherever I'm playing, and that's a problem on bass as well. And so when I saw the exercise, I'm like, I have to learn this. And it's a little bit different. So you do it two notes at a time, but you actually walk up and then you walk back down. So it goes something like. Holding the guitar is so hard. Anyway, this is like 30 minutes into learning that, but I see value in it. You walk up the board and then you walk back down. I guess the neck. I guess so. This way, it will give you a more understanding of rest of the guitar. So I'll be practicing that. I guess when I'm free again. So episode 15. I can't believe it's already. So if I do one every week, 15. That's almost 4 months. Has it been 4 months? Almost 4 months. Maybe three, at least 3 months. I know that. Wow, it's been a long time. I guess, yeah. Let's just keep with. Don't forget how to live. I guess. Um, One of the biggest things that through helped me survive throughout the 5 months of unemployment, I guess, or working in real estate but not getting any money, is I guess it's important to keep your head high and just think, or even if it is not true, you sort of still have to believe that there is something for you at the other end, and you just have to keep going. Because if you don't try, well, that's when you actually lose, right? And so you just have to keep trying. Now, that being said, bashing your head against the wall don't always work. So don't forget to live your life and play music, play video games, hang out with friends, go to social events. Because at the end of the day, and this actually ties into something bigger, is that you have to ask yourself, do we work to work or do we work to live? Or rather, do we live to work? Because the other day, I actually get into trouble. I actually get into trouble with, well, not exactly trouble, but, I would look at online forums like Reddit and things like that. And if I see something, well, I don't do it to everything that I don't like, but it struck a chord with me because it was a post about how HEB will be so much. Well, HEB. It's a meme post about how HEB is so much nicer because they discontinued Snap and EBT, and then there are less security guards and everything is stocked at HEB, right? And and then the people were just really mean spirited about how they think the poor people don't deserve to eat. And I guess that's one of those things that sort of struck a chord with me, and I decided to actually say something. I personally don't enjoy drama, and I personally don't enjoy flame wars, but it it's it's one of those things where we often talk about divide and conquer, but we don't actually. Most people, anyways, like we talk about the divide and conquer when you learn about Western civilizations and things like that, but whether in your everyday how people are divided, both between the family members, political belief, sexual orientation, whatever, doesn't really matter. If there's a differing opinion, they're going to blast it to divide people like you and me, so that we can never come together. Because at the end of the day, the rich and powerful are essentially dynasties, family dynasties. And if regular people can't even come together and form a family, or maybe even basic friendship, what chance do they have going against family dynasties, right? And so when I saw that mean spiritedness when it comes to sort of like na 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 na, towards the people who allegedly abuses the system, it just didn't feel right because sure, I'm sure there are people who either lie or don't assert themselves so that they qualify for these benefits, right? But you also have to realize that there are also people who work really hard but don't make ends meet, or people who are sick, people who are old, people who are too young, who also need it for these benefits. And which brings up the question, if you hate or if you dislike an enemy so much, are you willing to drive through the innocent people to get to the people on the other end, right? Like how, for instance, George Carlin said, politicians have traditionally hidden behind the flag, the Bible, and children, right? In other words, suppose you want to get at politicians, are you willing? And suppose that they did something deserving of it. Are you willing to drive through children, the Bible, and the flag just to get at the bad guys, right? Because good manipulators will layer themselves in such a ways that if you were to get at them, it's almost not worth the cost. Because that's what a good manipulator slash parasite does. They embed themselves in a way that you more or less have to kill the host to get at them. So there's that, right? And then, of course, as the flame wars went on about this whole topic, one of the talking points were something like, oh, and actually, before I forget, now the reason why I mentioned why it's important to know if you want to drive through the innocent to get at the guilty is this. There's this Japanese TV show, and I didn't watch through all of it, but I only watched the first 2 episodes, and it left a lasting impression on me, and it's called Legal High. And not to spoil much, pretty much at the end of the story arc in the first 2 episodes, the bright-eyed defense lawyer is questioning whether what she did was the right thing to do, because the guy she helped prove innocent is kind of creepy, kind of shady. So she wondered if she just let the bad guy free, right? While that is the case, her mentor mentioned to her that yes, helping innocent people become free is important, but even if your client may or may not, but likely to be criminal, as lawyers, and I'm not a lawyer, but at least from the show's perspective, as lawyers, you have a duty to test the system to make sure that the system follows through the procedures to arrive at the point that says the defendant is guilty. Because as defense lawyers, if you don't make sure that the procedures are followed, and lo and behold, our current world where they're skipping due diligence to go for people, right? If you don't do that, then that's how the system becomes corrupt and collapses. So even if someone is guilty, it's still important to step through every single step of the way. For instance, something you might be familiar with would be the proper way of collecting evidence, warrants, and things like that. Because if you illegally obtain them, and then nobody fight for that, then in a way, that's how we arrive at our current mass surveillance state, right? So, I wish those defense lawyers fought harder. But then again, they're not exactly put into a position to win, at least in America, because public defense lawyers are stretched thin, and I guess they don't really get monetary rewards for doing all the public defending now, do they? But anyway, so there's that. So ask yourself whether it's important to drive through the innocent to get at the guilty, because I remember if I remember correctly, someone in law enforcement and I saw it on YouTube, it was something like it's something like if we condemned just one innocent person in a crime, then it's not worth catching all the other bad guys, or something like that. Now, whether that's sort of like a naive ideal, I don't know. The system isn't perfect, but we should at least strive for it, right? So anyways, the flame war continues. Okay, the flame war continues, and one of the persons said, well, these support like Snap and EBT should be temporary, and it shouldn't be a life choice. And well, that's the thing. They don't get a lot of money. Now, of course, suppose if you live a minimalist life and you get some hundreds of dollars, but never like maybe 200. Like for groceries, yeah, I suppose you could live on without ever really having to work, but that's hard in today's world, especially with the rising food prices, right? And who would actually choose to live like that, right? I'm sure there are people who abuse the system, but because when that person said it's a choice, right? It's the kind of choice that I think about when, WEF says things like, you will own nothing, but you will be happy, right? And I would think to myself, who would choose that, right? Because nobody in their right mind would choose to say, oh, I don't want to own anything. Obviously, unless manipulators change the law where owning anything is so painful that you would rather just rent everything, right? But yeah, and so I don't know, because this whole, for lack of better words, it's almost like a victim blaming game. Because sure, there are abusers of the system, but you also have to think about places like Walmart that pays their employees so little that they actually teaches them the employees how to apply for food stamp and assistance, right? So, and then you also have to think about these food stamps and assistance. They spend the money. Where do you think the money goes? It still goes back up top. So, yeah, people are just pitted against one another with so much anger and hate to the special group of the weak, I guess. And and it doesn't matter if it is LGBTQ, it doesn't matter if it is poor people, it doesn't matter if it's immigrant. It's like the barrel is aimed all around, but it's never really aimed up, right? And I don't know, because, and I tried to talk to my father about stuff like this, and all he says is, "Oh, there are more like the fentanyl cases in Taos, New Mexico, has doubled in the last year, ever since the whatever border thing, right?" But I'm thinking to myself, like, well, it's like even life is wonderful. I'm sure there will be people who do drugs, but how many people are out there who do drugs because they're unhappy, right? And and to me, it's more important about creating a world where people, you know, more often than not, are happy, right? Now, of course, happy is one of those things where it's just like somebody told a joke. I think someone from far away. It goes something like this. It's like a lot of people are not happy with America. All they have, or a lot of people don't think America is great. All they have to do is go to Turkey, I think, for 2 years, and then once they come back, America is great again, right? Yeah, but I guess as Americans, supposedly the best country in the world, we shouldn't be happy just because we are better than everybody else, or everybody else have it worse, so we intrinsically, without getting anything, are happy, right? I think it's important to be grateful, but as as of right now, still, as leader of the world, I don't think complacency is suited for a young country like this. And so I don't know. It's really hard to say. But at the end of the day, I think that if if it means that some people might abuse the system for food, but some family who actually need it, like family with sick members that actually need other members to not work a job to just to take care of them, family with children, family struggle with poverty, food security, whatever, I would think that it would be worth it, right? Now, of course, oh man, of course, the voice in the back of my head would be one of, possible counter argument would be something like, well, I'm sure someone is going to say something like, well, what if immigrants abuse the system, right? And well, because apparently immigrants are so powerful, they can just randomly get benefits or something. And well, but that's the thing, right? We It's like, how doctors have the, I don't know the name, Hippographic I could be wrong. It's some oath about taking care of people, right? It doesn't matter what nationality they are from. If you see a hurt person, you have a duty as a doctor to take care of them. And so, and so, when we see people suffer, the America I knew growing up doesn't care about what country they're from. And actually, it's also the kindness that I received growing up in America, is that it doesn't matter where they're from, they still get treated like a human being, like basic health and basic food and basic shelter. And so, as we're drawing these lines on who deserve help, who doesn't deserve help, the thing is, at best, these imaginary lines on who deserves and who doesn't deserve, like for instance, do DI deserve extended rights, or do trans people get extended rights, or do regular family get extended rights, do immigrants get more rights, like, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, like I said in previous videos, what the government does is that it favors a certain group of the month, or wherever flavor of the month, and that which would give them the most support. And then the group is like, oh my god, the government finally listened, but it's really just that they happen to be the biggest group at the time, so that the government can maintain power via voting. And but that's the thing, right? Like, just because the government likes you now doesn't mean the government in the future is going to like you. You're just the flavor of the month. You're useful idiots for the moment. And everybody, me included, none of us are immune to it. There are times where they are good and there are times they are bad. And those are both not really our doing. It just happened to be wherever number is favorable in the country at the moment. And so at best, it's really just the shuffling of resources. But at worst, it's the slow deterioration of our rights and our kindness and humanities towards one another. So, because now it's immigrants don't deserve it, minorities don't deserve it, soon it's going to be poor people don't deserve it, and then the definition of poor can be changed, because if you don't own asset, it's just a few cycles of printing away before you also end up on the streets. And I'm sure with the amount of layoffs going on, I experienced it myself, how fragile our existence in society is, how easy it is to just lose everything and end up on the streets, right? So, yeah. I don't know, man. It's, at least in my philosophy, I prefer to make friends than enemies. Because a lot of times it's a misunderstanding, and I'm a firm believer that there's enough to go around for everyone. Because if there's not enough to go around for everyone, then only the people on the top deserve it, and we should just roll over and just pass away. Because why? Because then we are unworthy, right? And so this whole tying of people's worth to their economic output, it's like that part in the movie Falling Down. You know, the black guy who was denied whatever loan that he needed, as the main character walked up to him as the black guy left the bank, is like, not economically viable, right? But that's the thing. If the system is man-made, it can be manipulated, and well, it can for sure be manipulated. And if it is manipulated, whether you're economically viable or not really comes down to if the system want to fuck with you or not. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't forget to live, because because and this is me trying to be ironic. It's like, well, I'm sure that all the problems will be all your problems will go away if we just get rid of all the immigrants, the trans people, the left or whatever, right? Because the powers on the top are so willing to just give away their resources and power with the people, right? You know, the kind of resources that how many people are betrayed and how many people just fall off society because, you know, we live in a country where everybody has to drive. So if you have someone that you used to know that just disappeared, they live far enough away that they just disappear into the ether, right? And and that raises another point is this whole layoff thing. So the best way I can explain the layoff thing is like this. You know how I rent an apartment like this, right? Well, and this happens more in cities, is that every year when your lease is up, they tend to increase the price of your rent. Now, what ends up happening is that you either take on the increased rent, so you pay more, or you look for a new place to live, right? Either way, the apartment don't really budge. And then, so it's really up to you how you sort of want to be fucked with, right? You either pay extra to move or you pay extras to stay. Now, what does it do to people, right? Because if you move all the time, can you really form lasting relationships with your neighbor? Remember how earlier I was talking about that we fight, like the competition is against family dynasties? Well, if you don't even know your neighbor and you can't even make new friends, right? And so that's one layer of it, right? Now, the reason why I bring it up compared to this whole layoff thing is that I finally have a job after 5 months, right? And one of the biggest pang of my job is not even that I don't have the skills to do what I need to do, because I essentially took a job 2 ranks below what I was doing. So everything I'm doing now is well within my skill level. And actually, what ends up happening is that a lot of the times I know exactly what went wrong, but I don't have access to it because I'm 2 levels down, which is kind of frustrating. But anyway, but the whole mass layoff, the cycle of mass layoff is this, right? If it were in employees' favor and you get your bonuses every year, so let's say, but you don't change your job title. So imagine you make $50,000 a year and they give you, I don't know, 6%, 3%. Anyways, how many of those 3 to 6% can repeat before you hit a big enough number that they think that you're no longer worth it, no longer to pay you that much for your job position if you don't take on any additional duties, right? Because the promise, or rather the implied promise, but that was never said, is that they pay you a little bit less in the beginning so that by the time you work 3 years in, 5 years in, the percentages increase, keeps up with inflation, and actually push you past what you would have been making had you started a little bit higher, right? But that's the thing, people get laid off, people get fired all the time before then, right? It's very much like those software companies that say that, oh, if you stay with us for 3 years or 5 years, you get this amazing amount of money, right? But as the years close in, they just, it's called constructive firing, which means they increase your job load because there's no law. There may be laws on rent control. There's no law on work control, as in how much work is expected out of you, right? They can do whatever they want and then just say, oh, you didn't meet the criteria, bam, fired, right? And all it took is what, 3 to 6 months? It comes really fast. when they deploy strategies like this. And so, and don't forget, we're in America, it's at will, right? So there's nothing. I think there's only one state in America that doesn't have at will. Mississippi? I don't know, or is it Missouri? I don't remember, but it's one of those states. And but yeah, most of us don't have job security because everything is at will. And so if you can just lose your job like this, right? So think about it like this, right? You work a job for 6 years, like I did. I have so much institutional knowledge. So on top of my skills as an IT tech, well, IT operations, I also have institutional knowledge as in how the company runs, how each department works, how the people work, right? These institutional knowledges are soft skills that are harder to measure, but they shine through in terms of how efficient I do my job, right? That's value that justifies the extra money on top of my just tech skills, right? But now, if you mass fire a whole bunch of people and they essentially have to start at zero at other locations, they essentially have zero institutional knowledge. And if they have zero institutional knowledge, as in how this business runs, who to talk to get what done, and things like that, then you can more easily beat down on them as an owner or as HR and just say, well, your skills are impressive, but you don't know shit about our company, so I'm going to give you this amount of money, which is usually whatever is less, right? And so people are forced to be uprooted both from where they live, in this case, rent situation, and their job situation, just so that they never grow familiar and never grow powerful through their familiarity to their location. So, and actually, that's one of the reasons why I'm so jealous of people who have friends from their childhood, because I am somebody who moved a lot growing up. I moved from Wuhan to Guangzhou area, closer to Foshan, when I was young. And then I moved from Foshan to New Mexico, which is in the middle of nowhere. And my closest friend, it takes me like 30 minutes walk. Oh, okay, I didn't walk that slow, so maybe 20 minutes to walk down a hill and walk back up. One way, 20 minutes one way, right? Just to hang out with anyone. And then back then we didn't have internet. And then so I think we just hiked a lot of times. Yeah, hiking for fun. And of course I went to college, but the thing is, my ability to socialize, compounded with me being a nerd, was stunted growing up. So by the time I get to college, I guess, and even now, I guess a part of me is a little bit, I wouldn't say quirky, but weird. And like maintaining eye contact with people sometimes is hard for me because it feels like I'm either wanting to fight or confrontational. I don't know how the other person feels, but to me it feels confrontational, and in a way it burns. It burns my eyes to keep eye contact. And perhaps it's just cultural differences growing up, right? And so by that time the damage is done, and I'm just glad that I still have friends today, that people who look past the cover of my book and willing to read what's inside and stay, right? And so anyway, yeah, don't forget to live, because the world, or rather, the in Chinese it's called 人之初性本善. It means in the beginning, people are kind. Like when we were kids, I guess kids can be monsters too, but that's because they don't know, like ripping apart some animal. But we're getting ragdolled by kids high on sugar during Halloween because that happened to me. I don't think they're evil, but that's a lot of power to hand into kids that just rammed me to get to their candy. But it's not that the world isn't kind. The whole point of society is so that we don't have to deal with the shit that's natural causes, right? Because as much as people want to blame it on the poor people, the LGBTQ people, whatever flavor of the month is, right? At the end of the day, we are, man, tell you what though, it's hard to maintain thought because, yeah, sometimes it's just hard to maintain thought. So I was talking about, oh, right, I remembered. I guess it doesn't make sense to hate on people because the flavor of the month of whoever's the the favored group of the month always changes based on the ebb and flow of wherever people on top needs, right? It doesn't make them better people. It just means that they happen to be the favored ones during that time, right? And so to hate on people because they are favored or love people because they're favored are both wrong because it's not their doing. And whether you are a loner that is self-sufficient or you're someone who needs society to survive, I think it's important to I think it's important to accept the reality of how you decide to live. And there's no wrong answer to it, right? If you are self-sufficient and you don't want to deal with people, then live on your own and make peace with it and don't cry when you're lonely, right? Because it's part of that lifestyle. And on the flip side, the benefit of society is that you benefit from things that are not your doing, right? People take care of each other when they're in society, right? But it also means that you're responsible for things that that's not your doing, but you live in a society, so you have to take care of it, right? So I think whatever lifestyle you decide to pick, just make peace with it because you only get one life, and being angry the whole time is no way to live. And but anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough. How long have I rambled on? 38 minutes? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, don't forget to live because you only live once. And as cliche as that sound, it's hard to do, especially when the things get tough. And like I said in the previous interview before, is like it's unfortunate that the system and the powers that be want you to think that you're powerless and that you don't deserve happiness, but that's not the case. You have what it takes to be happy, and the people around you are the ingredients, like, to happiness. Now, don't become accountable now because that's not what I meant. But I'm talking about like the connections that you build with people, and as much as you want to hate them, when the push comes to shove, they're the people that you will have to keep your back, back to back against, fighting against whoever is coming, because when the cracking down happens from the top, and it's not even because that you did something wrong, it's just there's not enough resources to go around. Whether it's the deterioration of your rights or your property, doesn't matter. When the cracking down happens, the people that you don't get along with, but they are neighbors, are the people that you'll be fighting together with. So make peace, because the family dynasties won't. And yeah, it's just better to have more friends. Yeah, and a quick note on friendship. Being friends is more than just eating good food together and hanging out. It also means saying the difficult things when your friend needs to hear it the most. If your friend is doing something bad, say it to them, because that's what friends are for. Anyway, it's been 40 minutes. I had a long week. I also made a mistake at work that I need to fix this Monday, so I'll be going in early. Yes, I make mistakes too. And I also forgot that in bureaucracy heavy places, it's all about not making mistakes, because I forgot about that because I didn't work in bureaucracy for a while. And when you make mistakes, the other side most of the time look like they're not doing anything. But when you do make a mistake, they become the hardest worker, and it seems like getting the problem solved and grilling your butt is their life's mission. It's so passive aggressive. So, yeah, but I gotta do what I gotta do to live. And I do take pride in my work. So mistakes can be fixed, and so I intend to correct it. But yeah. Anyway, I probably need to go to bed. I'm getting actually a little bit sleepy because I don't know, the thoughts are a little bit heavy on this mind. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.